Post 9/11, the U.S. government gave more latitude to domestic security agencies. Civil rights groups allege the Patriot Act unleashed more surveillance, wiretapping, and arbitrary detention merely on suspicion. So is the United States sacrificing the rights and freedoms of its citizens for safety and security? Joining me now to discuss this is U.S. constitutional lawyer Mark Levine. He hosts the Washington, D.C. based radio and television talk show, The Inside Scoop. Also with us, retired American Navy Commander JD Gordon. He also served as spokesperson in the U.S. Defense Department under both Donald Rumsfeld and Robert Gates. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mike.
Quick question. Are Americans safer now after 9/11? And I'll start with you, Mark.
I think we are safer. I think there are a number of things we put in place, not all of which violate our civil liberties. Some do. We'll get to that, I'm sure. But simply things like allowing the CIA and the FBI to share information, having a no-fly list as long as it's proper and done in the right way, locking the doors to cockpits of airplanes, watching out more likely to if we have domestic surveillance that's done in the proper way. Again, I think as long as we do things in the proper way, we are safer than we are.
JD, safer than we were on September 11th?
Yes, I agree. I think we're safer as well because we have a lot of different measures that have been put in place due to the Patriot Act. Airport screening is very tight, so is screening when people take boats and ferries. And also just the surveillance that the government has put in place for people. It's a little bit of a balance because I think that we don't have the privacy we used to, but I'd rather sacrifice that privacy and be safe.
Well, I want to get to that in just a minute, but one of the things I want to touch on is the National Priorities Project, a nonprofit, nonpartisan group, came out and analyzed the amount of money that has been spent since September 11th up to May of 2011. $7.6 trillion on defense and homeland security since the attacks. Is that money well spent? And I'll start with you, Mark.
I actually think some of it is excessive. You know,
some of it?
Okay, a lot of it is excessive.
Okay, thank you.
Look, one of the things they do in Congress is they try to parcel it out based on where representatives are from and where senators are from. So you have, for example, a certain amount of money that goes to Wyoming. Now, I just don't think the terrorists are going after our national parks. Clearly, New York, Washington, Los Angeles, Chicago, these cities need help. There are places in the wilderness that don't need help at all, but for political reasons, a lot of this money gets outspent. But some of it's very important.
Well, JD, you spent a lot of time at the Defense Department, at the Pentagon, so I'll give you a chance to defend it. It seems excessive to most people. Was really all that money needed, and really has it been that effective?
I would agree it would be excessive, just that amount over the period of time. I think that it's important to realize, though, we had two wars during that time frame in Afghanistan and Iraq, and those were extraordinarily expensive. And just the actual physical security that the Transportation Security Agency does, TSA, for all the airport screenings and just the increased surveillance. So that's one of the reasons why it's too expensive, but I also do think that it is excessive, and I think that we should trim our spending.
Well, we spend a lot of money, and we also seem to have lost a lot of our rights, some of the rights and freedoms that the United States is all about. People have really kind of, as JD said, well, you know, it's okay, we can give those away because it's how do you come down on this? You're a constitutional attorney.
Well, and of course, I rely on my guideline, the Constitution of the United States. Look, America is of many ethnicities, many races. People all over the world come to America. There's only one thing that we can all swear allegiance to, and I think it's the Constitution of the United States, which every office holder in the United States swears allegiance to. We don't all have the same religion, but this is our sacred text. The Constitution sets out very clear provisions. You can't just go and wiretap someone without a warrant, without reasonable suspicion, without probable cause. There are very clear laws here, and I'm concerned that we have gone beyond those laws. I think when we wiretap every American, for example, we read everybody's emails. It came out that hundreds of millions of emails are read. To me, that's clearly a Fourth Amendment violation. We need to have reasonable suspicion. If we have probable cause to believe someone's a terrorist, go and wiretap them. But ordinary American citizens, I don't think should be followed that way.
Your old boss, Donald Rumsfeld, was kind of the architect of this, so I'll give you a chance to defend it.
Right. I think it's been appropriate, what we've been doing. We haven't had another 9/11 in this country, thank goodness. But a TSA, I think, annoys me just about like it annoys everybody else. I think they go over a little bit over the top at the airport screenings.
But you know, it's interesting, you point out that there hasn't been another attack, but if you look back on the terrorist attack, the first at the World Trade Center, that was in 1993, right. There was a huge gap between those, and the amount of money wasn't spent.
And there have been attempts, no question about it. There was the underwear bomber, there was the guy in Times Square. People are trying, and the way they've been stopped has not been because people are reading emails. They've been because some alert citizen warned some alert police officer, and they're stopped in time.
Which gets to an interesting point, which is citizenry, in many of these cases, cases that have stepped in fact, on the planes as well.
Mm-hmm. But that's also part of the cost, because when we have these public information campaigns to let citizens know, okay, if you see something suspicious, let us know. That factors into the cost as well.
That's not very expensive, though. I mean, let's face it.
Part of the cost.
I'm all for those, but that's not clearly. I mean, the war in Iraq, there's $1 trillion right there, and I don't think it made us safer one bit. So that's a big loss. That a public information campaign may cost a few $1 million.
Well, Mark, let me ask you about the Patriot Act, because I know you helped craft it in a way. What went wrong?
I don't want to overstate what I did here.
You did 5 words in it,
I
right?
did about 5 pages of 200 pages. I worked for Congressman Barney Frank at the time, and my little section was actually to protect civil liberties. In fact, that section is no longer in the bill.
But when you guys were crafting it, didn't you see that you were kind of opening a door, or what was the thinking behind it?
Well, it was right after September 11th, and Democrats, Republicans came together, and frankly, there were a long laundry list of things that the Justice Department had wanted for a long period of time. Some make perfect sense. I'm here to tell you, for example, allowing the CIA and the FBI to share information. I don't know why that wall was set up in the first place. That's a good part of the Patriot Act. It's not all bad. My concern is not so much what Americans see when they go through airports, but what they don't see. When you have the government, for example, and I don't think Obama's doing this, but we know that President Bush would take people and send them to foreign countries to be tortured. Now, to me, there's absolutely no way you can do that in the United States Constitution. And my understanding is Obama's not doing that anymore, but I'm not in Homeland Security, and frankly, what we don't know concerns me.
I want to give you a chance to respond to that.
Yeah, well, we're only talking about a handful of people that Mark's talking about.
More
rendition.
than a handful.
A handful of people that went to different countries, generally to their own home country.
But does that make it right?
Well, that's water under the bridge. This happened years ago, and we can't take back what's been done before.
But isn't the United States this beacon, this model for the rest of the world? And when they do things like this, doesn't it make it hard to really kind of frame that way?
Yeah, but I'd say a lot of the allegations weren't even true about some of the things that happened to the detainees. I'll give you a good example. We had at Guantanamo 22 Uyghurs, and they're from the western part of China. We allowed Chinese officials to visit them, and then a lot of the media in the United States said they were tortured by the Chinese, which is just a complete fabrication. It wasn't true at all.
Let me give another example. Maher Arar, this is a Canadian citizen who is originally from Syria. He was changing planes in John F. Kennedy Airport in New York. He wasn't even coming to the United States. They took him based on false information. They sent him to Syria. He was brutally, brutally tortured. No trial, no, you know, the Constitution says you can't have cruel, unusual punishment. That's the 8th Amendment. If we felt this man did something wrong, we have procedures. You arrest him, you charge him, you prove it to a jury, and then you punish him. And if he's not, you let him go. I don't like when the United States president feels that they're beyond the Constitution of the United States, and that was one of my big problems with the Bush administration.
And wouldn't you agree, too, and I want to get both of you to give me your thoughts on this, wouldn't you agree that if this was a different country that was doing this sort of thing, the United States might be the first one to say, hey, these are human rights violations, these sorts of things should not be going on?
The only thing we have that brings us together, again, not an ethnicity, not a religion, not a race, it's the Constitution of the United States. If we disobey this, then who are we?
How can we square, here in the United States, how can we square that?
I think it's a very difficult decision we have to make, because we're trying to keep our country safe. We're trying to prevent another 9/11, and in certain cases where we thought that we had very dangerous terror suspects, we did give them to other countries in the years after 9/11.
Why not, JD, why not try them? Don't torture them. I actually don't think torture ever helps us give it any reliable information. You torture someone, they're going to tell you whatever they think you want to hear. Right. If this man, if we thought he was dangerous, why not use the Constitution, use our procedures, and try him? I mean, you can't really defend this.
We are trying them now at Guantanamo via military commission, and we don't do renditions anymore. This was just a very short period in our history.
Would you support a law banning renditions?
No, I wouldn't. Because I don't think you should take anything off the table ever when it comes to security for the country. But really, like, this was a period in our country, a period of time that's passed. We have a very humane system of detaining people at Guantanamo Bay. We have 168 there right now. And we do try them. There are military commissions going on right now. In fact, the 9/11 case is in progress against Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and the other 4 co-conspirators. So I think we've really turned the corner on some of the darkest times in our country.
Then I fear there'll be another attack, and then we come right back and do it.
Well,
I want to have standards in place so that we don't ever go down that dark road again.
Mark, JD, a lively debate. Thank you both for coming in. Always a pleasure seeing both of you. Thanks again.
Cheers.
Thank you.